Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to regular council meeting. Ironically, this is our second last meeting, ladies and gentlemen. Hard to believe it's been that many. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have a few announcements. Crystal, you want to start?
I do. I want to congratulate the senior DVSS senior girls volleyball team for winning gold at their home tournament, but more specifically, their coaches, who are also great team members of the town of Drumheller, which includes Erica Crocker, our communications officer, and Connor Shooter, project manager with Jared's team. So I don't think people realize that these two don't even have kids in school, don't even have kids on the team, and they're spending their extra time volunteering and coaching our youth. So thank you.
Yay! Well done. All right, Tony.
Yeah, just a reminder to the listening public, the Royal Trail Museum is celebrating its 40th anniversary this week. They'll be having a barbecue and free admission, so mark it in your calendar, Thursday, September 25th, 5:30 to 7:30.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, just wanted to note the seniors fair going on this Thursday, growing stronger together from 9:30 to 3:30. This is a free event, and there's complimentary lunch, activities, fantastic social setting, features 5 excellent speakers. Parkinson's Association, Jason Sneck from the University of Zurich, Recovery Alberta, public health dietitian, and they've even imported a fantastic speaker from Newcastle, I hear.
That wouldn't by chance start with a T and end with a Z? No. Couldn't be. Okay, and I would just like to announce that we have some people that are running for council, sitting in council chambers, which I obviously love because it shows that you're putting your foot forward, stepping in, learning what we do. And we really, really, truly appreciate it. So Samantha Haddon, Cheryl McNeil, Tony Migueles running for mayor, and AJ Fry. So we wish you all the best, and we know how hard these roles are and the commitment that it takes, and just being here shows you're ready for that commitment. So thank you for doing that. All right. Any additions to the agenda? Esther?
Yes, Your Worship. We actually would like to move item 7.1.3 East Cooley Land Designation Bylaw to our next meeting, please.
All right, so that'll move to October 6th. All right, anything else? All right, all in favor, or actually, I need a motion to accept that amended agenda, please. Tony?
I move that council adopt the agenda for September 22 to 2025 regular council meeting as amended.
Seconder, please. Patrick? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of September 8th, please? Stephanie?
I move that council approves the minutes for the September 8th, 2025 regular council meeting as presented.
Seconder? Crystal? Comments? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to accept the Municipal Planning Commission meetings of July 10th and July 25th, please, Crystal?
I move that council accepts the Municipal Planning Commission meeting minutes for July 10th, 2025 and July 25th, 2025 regular meetings as information.
Seconder, please. Tony? Comments? All in favor? Carrie, can I get a motion to accept the minutes of Drumheller Public Library, July 9th minutes, please? Stephanie?
I move that council accepts the Drumheller Public Library Board meeting minutes for the July 9th, 2025 regular meeting as information.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? All in favor? Carried. And can I get a motion to accept the minutes of Drumheller Housing, please, March 20th and July 21st? Crystal?
I move that council accepts the Drumheller Housing Administration meeting minutes for March 20th, 2025 and July 9th, 2025 regular meetings as presented.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? Crystal?
In the package, it actually says July 9th, but the meeting minutes are from July 21st. So as the heading. So I don't know if we need to.
Will you accept amended motion?
of my own
Of your
motion?
own?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Patrick, will you second it? Thank you. You got that noted? All right. All in favor? Carried. Just for the listening public, we present those council board and committee meeting minutes so that people know what's going on within the community. So as you have time at your leisure, you're more than welcome to read them. Okay, we shall move on to 7.1.1, please, Esther.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So we have for you today encroachment bylaw number 2.25 for a third reading. Administration has become aware of an increase in the number of structures or objects that are encroachments onto town-owned lands. This includes on our reserves and our streets. Over the last several years, this has been occurring on a more increasing level. Therefore, administration is proposing encroachment bylaw 2.25 in order to aim to establish some formal guidelines for managing these situations. We have recently brought this bylaw to council for first and second reading on August 25th, and no changes have been made since that time. Typically, administration does identify encroachments when we complete the certificates of compliance related to land transactions for private property owners. There have been an increase, like I've mentioned, in the certificates, which has led to an increase in awareness on these encroachment situations. In addition, the development officer and municipal enforcement have frequently handled complaints that highlight these encroachments of various forms. Within the proposed bylaw, encroachment means anything that is placed in a fixed location on or in the ground or attached to something that extends on or over town-owned lands. It includes any structures such as fences, decks, and garages, and includes projecting signage and lighting fixtures, hard landscaping, and utilities. The proposed bylaw outlined does provide that the CAO is the decision-making authority in accordance with our other municipal land management bylaws and policies. Under the provision of the proposed bylaw, the CAO or their designate can issue written authorization or formal encroachment agreements, which must be registered as a caveat by the Land Titles Office. And the CAO can revoke or amend approvals and order removal of encroachments at any time. Some of the general prohibitions outlined within the proposed bylaw are as follows. No encroachments are allowed onto town land without written authorization from the town. Written authorization may be in the format of a letter of consent or an encroachment agreement registered on the subject's property's certificate of title. And encroachments onto reserve lands would be strictly prohibited unless permitted through other town policies, bylaws, or the MGA, which is the Municipal Government Act. Additionally, within the proposal, the town would be required to deny an encroachment application and issue a letter of rejection if it jeopardizes public safety, interferes with the operation of the town or a utility provider, obstructs public access to town property, or is not in the best interest of the town or its citizens. Provisions for municipal enforcement have been included within the bylaw, specifically through an enforcement order under sections 545 or 546 of the MGA. Failure to comply with this order constitutes an offense. If the property owner or occupier does not comply, the town may apply to a court for an injunction or in some cases remedy the violation at the violator's expense, which may be added to their tax roll. There is no financial impact for this bylaw at this time. The costs associated with any written authorization or encroachment agreements shall be at the expense of the property owner. Any costs associated with enforcement orders issued under the relative sections of the MGA shall be extended to the violator's property tax roll. Administration is recommending for council today to pass third and final reading of the bylaw.
Thanks, Esther. Can I get a motion, please? Tony?
I move that council gets third and final reading to encroachment bylaw number 02.25 as presented.
Seconder, please. Stephanie, comments? Tom?
So I'm 100% in favor of this bylaw, the way it reads. I'm just wondering, however, the onus on the property owner. I know we had a situation a couple of years ago in MPC where a contractor was hired by an owner, built a deck, I think part of a sidewalk, did not get a development permit, did not get a building permit, and ended up building this part of it on town property. And then all of a sudden, the owner is now, by law, I believe, discovered this, and the owner is now on the hook for, well, what do I do? So I'm just wondering, this is perfectly good the way it is. I'm just wondering if there could be something, some kind of a sanction for a contractor like that. I mean, a contractor has to have a business license. And in that situation, they didn't have a building permit, they didn't have a development permit, and they just walk away. So I'm just wondering if we could maybe think about that in the future, not change this bylaw in any way, but just kind of think of something like that.
Anybody else? Crystal?
Yeah, just a quick question. Just because it does talk about the community standards appeal. So if someone does get one of these, they can appeal it through the community standards appeal process, and just letting the community remember that that appeal board is made up of council. So just making sure that people are aware of that, because I kind of forgot that it was just us on that appeal board. So, but yeah, again, I'm in favor of this. We've come into these how many times, even the sale of properties have been delayed because of it. So if we can try to eliminate all that, that'd be really, really beneficial for moving forward. So thank you.
Patrick?
Yes, if somebody did indeed gain written authorization and it is registered as a caveat, would that follow the property as the ownership of the property changes?
Through your worship, yes, that is correct. That's the reason why it is put onto the land title itself.
And it still gives us the ability to revoke it even if it is registered as a caveat though here.
That is correct.
Okay.
We do remove caveats from time to time when it's required, for sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Just in comment to Tom's thing there, I think would be great, like Antonia, if she could maybe in the spring, especially because that's when it seems to be decks and all this stuff are built, a reminder or work with Erica on communications to people that, if they're having stuff done on their property, they should make sure that that person has a business license, has done a development permit, because then it does become their responsibility if you're not asking those questions, right? And thanks to Antonia and her and everybody involved, because this was a pretty complex bylaw that we requested, and it's now at least putting ease back into Greg's department to actually have something to follow. So thank you to everyone on their work on that. Any other comments? All in favor? Carried. Now I'd like to go back to 7.1.1. You have skipped it. I won't smack your hands.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, administration is requesting the cancellation of council, the committee of the whole meeting on October 14th, 2025, just in light of our proximity to the municipal election and administration being able to schedule all items to be completed on October 6th. Our proposed motion is that council cancels the October 14th committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please? Patrick?
I move the council cancels the October 14th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting.
Seconder? Stephanie? Comments? I'm canceling a meeting, Tony.
Very disappointed.
Well, due to the fact that there are going to be advanced polls that week, this allows administration time to plan and work towards that, because they've got a lot of work prepping for the upcoming election. So all in favor of that? Carried. Tony, you disappoint me. You didn't come back with something. Okay, let's move on to 7.1.4, please, Esther.
Certainly. Okay, this item is the Lehigh Land Designation Bylaw number 29.25, which was adopted on August 11th, 2025. So this bylaw is actually our land designation revising bylaw for first reading. So when this bylaw was sent to the Land Titles Office to be registered, there were some clerical mistakes identified, specifically in the legal description of the parcels within the bylaw. Block 11 was incorrectly shown as Block 2, and Block 6 was incorrectly shown as Block 1. In order to fix these errors, administration is recommending that council pass proposed revising bylaw 31.25 pursuant to section 63 of the Municipal Government Act.
Thanks, Esther. Can I get a motion for first reading? Tom?
I move the council gives first reading to Lehigh Land Designation Revising Bylaw number 31.25 as presented.
Seconder? Patrick? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion for second reading, please? Stephanie?
I move that council give second reading to Lehigh Land Designation Revising Bylaw number 31.25 as presented.
Seconder? Crystal? Comments? Tom?
Yeah, just wondering how this mistake would have been made and who caught it. Did we catch it, or did the land titles catch it, or how did we know that it was not correct?
I believe we did, Counselor. We caught it prior to sending it off, I understand.
Anybody else? This is just housekeeping, right? That's correct. Okay. Anybody else? All in favor? Carrie, can I get a unanimous consent for third reading, please? Tony?
I move that council gives unanimous consent for the third reading of the Lehigh Land Designation Revising Bylaw number 31.25.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? All in favor? Carried. And can I get a motion for third, final reading? Crystal?
I move that council gives third and final reading to Lehigh Land Designation Revising Bylaw number 31.25 as presented.
Seconder? Stephanie? Comments? For the listening public and all of you, we typically don't do 3 readings at a time. However, when it is a housekeeping duty where it's just cleaning up a clerical error or something, then we will tend to do 3 readings. So if you're wondering why we're doing that, that explains it. All right, all in favor? Carried. All right, let's move on. 7.1.5, please. And Mitchell's coming forward.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thanks for having me today. My name is Mitchell Visser. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services. And with me is my colleague Angela, who's been very instrumental in the creation of this bylaw. So I wanted to invite her up as well to speak on what I have before you today. So currently, as you know, council procedures are governed by the Council Procedure Bylaw number 04.21. This bylaw was passed on September 20th, 2021. Just 1 month prior to the 2021 municipal election. So we're following tradition here and bringing this forward right before the next general election. So the council procedure bylaw governs the functions and procedures of council and council committees, and is passed pursuant to section 145 of the MGA, Municipal Government Act. So due to recent amendments to the Act, council also passed amending bylaw number 17.25 on April 22nd. So that was earlier in the spring, and that was to add new requirements regarding public hearings. And so what I have before you is the consolidated version, which was consolidated on April 22nd to include those amendments. What I also have before you is bylaw number 33.25, which is a council procedure bylaw, which I have brought for you for hopefully first and second reading. This is an update, intends to replace the current council procedure bylaw to provide a more comprehensive document for the incoming council, which will be elected on October 20th, 2025. As I mentioned, our recommendation is that council give first and second reading to the council procedure bylaw. This new bylaw is intended. It's not intended to significantly alter what council is currently doing in terms of how they operate their council meetings. But what's really intending to do is kind of implement some of the best practices, some of the things that council has implemented just by operating as a council, and put that into writing so that when there is a new council, it's an easier transition for them to flow right into what this council has been doing, and just make that easier and provide more clarity on that process. Again, it's a difficult sometimes for new council to fully understand the parliamentary procedures as implemented. So by putting in a written document, we're going to try and make that procedure as smooth as possible. Most of the changes, most of the major changes, are included in Schedule A, and I will go through that shortly. Some of the highlights in that. Also, for your information, so some of the sections in 0421 related to council committees have been removed, so they're not in the current council procedure bylaw. And the reason for that is the intention of legislative services is to bring a council committee and board bylaw. So that will include, currently council is required to pass a bylaw every time a new board or committee is created in accordance with the MGA. And because of that, we have a lot of different bylaws that are all separate and different and distinct from each other, which create boards and committees. The intent of a board and committee bylaw is to create a framework for all the boards and committees that all the boards and committees will sit under and be a guideline for all of those. So there's a consistent procedure for all of those boards of council. That's not before you today, but the intent is to bring that later. And so if you're wondering why those procedures related to council committees are not in this new bylaw, it's because the intention is to come to that new committee. The new bylaw for council committees. Following the election, we intend to hopefully pass this bylaw before the new council is implemented, and then we want to use this bylaw to help train the new council in council procedures. With that being said, I'll go through some of the major changes in Schedule A. I won't go through all of them because there's a lot. Some things I want to highlight is electronic meetings. When this was, when 0421 was implemented, electronic meetings, live streaming meetings, recording meetings was new. And so the section on electronic meetings have been expanded quite a bit to accommodate those changes that have taken place over the last 4 years. So some of these changes are, by default, council members aren't expected to participate in person unless for some reason they can't. And so those reasons are there in section 13.3. Also, all members who are attending electronically need to let the mayor and the CAO know prior. And that the chair will announce all the names of councilors attending electronically prior to a meeting. 13.6 to 13.7 establishes some requirements for participating electronically. So, such as always being visible to other participants, using a secure network, and being in a private location free from interruptions. 13.8 it requires the chair to attend all meetings in person except when the meeting is conducted wholly electronically. And this is just to avoid issues such as the chair disconnecting during a meeting or other difficulties with chairing remotely.
Yeah, just referring to secured network. So I'm in a hotel room in Edmonton or whatever, and connecting with them, their network in the hotel. Is that secured? Okay.
You can save, we'll comments at the end, because I got to get it on the table first.
Okay, I will respond to that at the end then.
Okay.
Section 20.3, all comments, presentation, questions, responses, and debate should be directed to the chair, and no one is allowed to speak unless recognized by the chair. This is intended to help the chair maintain order and decorum during the meeting and reduce any kind of side conversations. This is a standard practice in most governance boards and is taken from Robert's Rules of Order. We've expanded on the motions section quite a bit to provide different types of motions that council can make while trying to find a balance between making it exhaustive or too difficult to understand. But again, provides information on different motions such as motions to amend, refer, table, withdraw a motion, rescind a motion, refer something to a committee, limit debate on a motion, etc. We've also added more information on incidental points and motions out of order. Again, to help with that, providing council with more information on what they can and can't do within a council meeting. Bylaws have been expanded significantly. Sorry, I'm on the wrong section. Let me go back. Okay, I skipped ahead. Back to closed session. I'll go back to, no, sorry, recording and live streaming meetings. My apologies. So section 14.1, 14.2, recording and live streaming. All meetings are going to be recorded and live streamed to the public unless the part of the meeting is in closed session. And if there are technical difficulties or the chair decides to terminate the meeting. There's been quite an expansion on the closed session. So one of the suggestions is that council be required to open and close the meeting for each separate closed session agenda item. So this is added to provide greater transparency on which exemptions to disclosure apply to the topic and ensure that only the matters exempted by the Access to Information Act are discussed. Currently, when council makes a motion to go into closed session, all those exemptions to disclosures and the reasons for entering into closed session are part of the same motion. By separating it out, we just make it a little bit more transparent and easy to follow what's being discussed in each closed session. Additionally, 15.5 and 15.6, the suggestion is to require the names of all those present in the closed session to be recorded in the minutes. Again, this is intended to reinforce transparency, also ensure that people are limited or the closed session is limited to only those who are required to be there, and provide additional accountability for confidentiality to all the attendees at the meeting. 17.1 to 17.4, there's been a section added to, regarding emergent business. 18.1 to 18.4, notice of motion has been added, and this is a structure in which items can be added directly by a council member. So previous to that, there's not been a clear method by which a member of council can add something to the agenda. This establishes a clear process and also has a prescribed form, which is Schedule A of the bylaw. Going back to where I was earlier, apologies, I was stating meeting procedure 20.3, 20.4, we've already discussed that, and motions out of order. Moving on to 13.1 to 13.1.11, there's been a section where the bylaw section has been expanded quite significantly to provide additional clarity. Notably, one of the restrictions on council deliberation during first reading.
I'm just going to interrupt you. You said
Sure.
13.1 councils, 31.1.
31.1. My apologies.
No problem.
31 to 31.11. So notably, the restriction on council deliberation during first reading has been removed. So previously, council could not deliberate on a bylaw during first reading. This has been removed to give council more opportunity to deliberate and provide feedback on bylaws before they go to third reading. 32.1 to 32.3, there's been an additional section added on how correspondence directed to council is received. So, for example, when formal correspondence is addressed to council or council member concerning a council business, that's required to be circulated to all members of council, which again is something that's already being done, but just to put this in writing is important. And then records management section 33.1 and 33.2, there's just we're recommending establishing a formal process or procedure to allow alleged services to correct clerical mistakes in approved bylaws, minutes, and policies. And again, also to correct verbal mistakes made when moving a motion. And this would only be done in situations where it's clearly the mover has misspoken. So such as saying council rather than a committee of the whole when in a committee of the whole meeting. So that's kind of the highlights. If you have any, I know it's a lot, so if you have any questions, please feel free. I can take those now.
Can I get a motion to get this on the floor, please? Patrick?
I move that council give first reading to council procedure bylaw number 33.25 as presented.
Seconder? Tom? All in favor? Crystal, I still have majority. Are you in favor? Yes. So we got majority. Okay. Can I get a motion to, so So again, for the listening public, we don't talk on our first motion. We go into the second before we speak, but according to what they're gonna change, you're gonna get to be able to speak. So can I get a motion for second reading? Tony,
I move that council give second reading to council procedure bylaw number 33.25 as presented.
seconder, Stephanie, comments? Tom, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, just getting back to this secured network. So on occasion, we are away on holiday, on whatever. And I'm not sure how I would figure out if a network was secured. If I'm in a public library and using their Wi-Fi or whatever, is that a secured network? If I'm in a hotel room and using a network, is that a secured? Like, I don't know. How would I figure that out?
Thank you, Councillor Zarisky. Council has issued laptops through the IT contract with the town of Drumheller, and included on the laptops is a VPN connection. So once the VPN is established, all content is secure through that network. So that would establish the secured network at any location when you're on Wi-Fi.
As long as you're using that computer, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, anybody else? Stephanie,
Thank you. So in section 3.4, it says in the absence of any obligation of the act or any other applicable provincial legislation, any provision of this bylaw may be waived by a resolution with a 2/3 majority vote. So if we could waive this, anything in here, what would be the point of having the bylaw?
Yeah, excellent question. So this provision is included only as sort of an opt-out clause, I guess, and it's also limited in its scope by section 3.5. So the intention is there may be some situations where that we can't foresee, where a provision in this bylaw is really difficult for council to implement. Obviously, we don't know this situation because that's why we have that opt-out clause, because we can't tell which situation that's going to be or where that's going to show up. But it's limited by section 3.5, where it says a resolution passed in accordance with section 3.4 shall only be valid for the remainder of the meeting at which it was passed. So if there was something in here that council wanted to change longer term, they would have to go back and make an amending bylaw and actually change that provision. But if there was a situation where a provision didn't apply for that specific meeting, then they could use section 3.4 to kind of opt out of that provision. Does that kind of make sense?
I
I have an example.
Esther has an example.
Sure, I'll help. So this has come up in my previous role in another municipality, and in that case, it came up because they wanted to. I believe there's a section here that says an item cannot return to council for deliberation until 6 months has passed, and in that case, council wanted to bring it back earlier than 6 months because it was extremely time sensitive. So they made that motion here and used this clause over at the other municipality.
Okay, thank you very much, you guys.
Crystal,
Yeah, mine is just in regards to closed session, which is all of 15. But more particularly, why is the reason to record all persons present during each closed session, include their names and what times they enter and exit? If these are kind of sealed in a vault, we call it, anything in closed session is basically in a vault. What would be the purpose that you would need to record that information?
Yeah. So like you said, it is sealed in a vault, and they're in closed session. Nothing in closed session can be discussed outside of closed session. What we really want to do is we're trying to find ways to reinforce that idea, right? To ensure that the sanctity of the closed session is like adhered to. So it's one of the ways that we can add some sort of accountability. So the people in the we know the people that are in the room for that meeting, and again, it's just kind of reinforcing, right, that they're in the minutes, they're in the closed session, and so if there was some kind of breach of information, they would they would be in the minutes, right? Showing that they're in that meeting. That's one example. And again, the other reason is we want to also limit who's in that meeting to only the people who need to be in that meeting, right? So only usually it would be council and the CAO. If there is somebody like a lawyer that needs to be present for a legal matter, then of course they would be welcome to the closed session. But we want to try to limit the attendees of the closed session as much as possible to, again, ensure that the sanctity of the closed session is kind of being adhered to and nothing is being leaked out of that session. So
I'm just going to expand on that, though. I'm kind of concerned because if you put somebody's name down and somebody foips and somebody accidentally sends out that document, now you have it in writing. If you're concerned, why wouldn't you just have a form that whoever comes in for that particular meeting signs the confidentiality that whatever they, because I'm just, sometimes we have legal matters with people's names that I don't want to walk into that and think my name could be, like we've had those situations. So I'm kind of concerned about that one.
yeah, and so this is one of the proposals, but it's not something that's not super essential. So if that's something that council is not comfortable with at this time, it's something that we can totally pull from there or find another, like you said, have some kind of confidentiality agreement or find some other way to achieve the same goal.
Tom?
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I'm just thinking of a hypothetical, council goes in camera on a land matter, and the person whose land is being dealt with is named. Um, there may be people out there that would derive information from just knowing that that person was talking to council in camera, and people in the community knows this person has this land. And I mean, the whole idea of in camera is that it's totally confidential and would be unbiased, and that might create a bias.
Yeah, and Tom, I think you're right. With closed session, you're trying to find this balance between you want to provide enough information. So within every motion, you're declaring what the topic is about, right? Because you're trying to find this balance of only those exemptions, right, to disclosure um, that are permissible by the Access to Information Act are actually going to be in closed session. So when you make a motion, you will to go into closed session. The brief description of what's being discussed will be in that motion, but you don't want to give away. So you want to be, you want to find a balance, right, between transparency and then some matters do need to be discussed in private because they're exempt by the ATIA. And so I think you're right. I understand your point, and I think we can definitely look at taking that out for the next iteration.
Crystal?
What if we just used initials? Would that, no, nothing. Okay.
I just don't think it's fair. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
No,
the purpose
true.
of it, that people should feel comfortable enough to be able to speak, because then otherwise we're not going to solve some of the issues that we've solved if people are afraid to present themselves. Patrick?
Just still on it in camera, just the logistics of having each topic separated, going out of in camera to introduce the next, just the logistics of coming out, turning on the video feed to make a motion, to go back in. Is that going to be something, or?
I'm going to expand on that one too. We'll be, well, maybe the next council won't, but we'd be here all, like, that's a lot to go in, shut down, load up, go out, make a motion, come in, shut down, go out, come up. That's a lot of,
Yeah. So
and then to have, then whoever's, not in has to go out, and then we ask them to come back in. Like, it's just a lot of gymnastics.
So yeah, so the intention when we originally wrote this section wasn't to set up the live stream again, go to the public in that sense, right, where you set up the live stream and then go out again, because that's not practical. But I think the original intention was just so that the motions are separated. So there is a motion being made to go into closed session and out, and then in again and out, which is a little bit more administrative time. But I don't think realistically there would be any opening up the live stream again if there's no open session of council between the closed motions. But again, it would be primarily aimed at the increasing the transparency within the, or the clarity and the transparency within the minutes themselves, so people can see what matters being discussed and what exemptions to disclosure do apply. So maybe we could look at improving the clarity of what that it actually entails within the bylaw. Might be something we can look at.
Yeah, I think if you're doing it that way, you're not expecting to come back out, turn the camera back on, like that would, yeah. Anybody else? Tony?
Yeah, all good suggestions there, but a little bit of streamlining there. I just have a comment, no real recommendation there. The purpose of the update to the bylaw here, there's been a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work done on this. This is obvious. Not only has it updated to really show what's evolved since we took term, things like electronic meetings, which were unheard of before COVID, and recording and live stream, which was kind of hit and miss. So I think you've created a document here for a counselor that contains everything you want to know, but we're afraid to ask. The previous ones are quite short, didn't cover near half of these subjects, and you're always going here or asking there. So as a learning tool, and I think it's more important as well to have that. So good work on this.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm just gonna ask about 18.1 to 18.4 there. Allows council to introduce matters to the agenda through a structured process. So right now, if council has something, they'll call me and say, hey, I'd like to get either an update on this or add it to the agenda. So really it's the same, except now you're just gonna make it formal, is that? Like I mean, nobody can just, I guess my concern is I would hate for Patrick to say, throw a motion on the floor to Jared, who's not even prepared for the topic. He's not gonna be able to, you're just kind of setting your administration up. So I'm just wondering if clarity on that one.
Yeah. So I think so some of the formality exists. So with a council that works well together and is undivided, so a lot of the procedures may not seem 100% necessary all the time. But where it is necessary is when there is some division between council or where it doesn't. Some things aren't as smooth as they would be, right? And so I think that's the main intent of a lot of something like this for notice of motion, where again you're establishing a formal process, whereas in the past you can say, hey Heather, can we add this to the agenda, and that's fine. But it's not going to be Heather and Tom. It's going to be somebody else, right? And so that's I think the real importance of adding this procedure in.
No, and that's excellent because obviously I've been blessed with some amazing councils, 2 in a row. So, all right. And one more, 31.1. I actually love this one. And we had that conversation because for 8 years we never talked in our first reading. And Mitchell asked me why, and I said, I don't know, because that's what I was told. So I'm glad that this is coming forward because it's going to give next council and administration more time to do some digging and ask some questions before, because it's hard sometimes when you are discussing at second reading and then all of a sudden you don't have, then you think of something else that needs. So this is a great one. So I'm glad that you pushed that one forward. All right. All right. So that's, anybody else? All in favor of second reading? Carried. Thank you for the great work, you guys. I know this has been a long one. I appreciate it, and it's great for new councilors and mayors to have a more thorough process. I've been lucky. They're giving me lots of reins, but they're taking them away. All right. 7.2.1, please, Graham.
Good evening, your worship and council. I'm here with a briefing note to discuss the Lehigh Fish Habitat Compensation Project. and some of the results from a request for tender. So, as part of my name is Graham Waugh. I'm with the Drumheller Resiliency and Flood Mitigation Office. I'll be presenting this on behalf of the team there. So, as part of the overall flood mitigation program, fish habitat mitigation is required for works that impact riparian areas or in-stream areas of the Red Deer River or other creeks. So this would include placing rock or riprap at the bottom of the berm and the toe of the berm near the river, cutting down riparian forests, and other kind of clearing and construction near mostly the Red Deer River. So for this year's berm projects, the Knack Mine berm as well as the Rosedale Scarlet berms, a number of trees were removed and some riprap was placed in stream, resulting in a required compensation from Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And we have found a suitable project to naturalize and restore riparian area in the Lehigh area. So this will involve 18 hectares of riparian revegetation and renaturalization that would return the area to a kind of a natural river valley forest, and also include removing some of the gravel roads that were previously there. So to complete this project, it's a rather large, significant planting kind of construction project. We put out a request for tender in July that closed near the end of August. We received 3 bids. 2 of them were compliant, so that means they included all the necessary forms and bonds and other documents. So of those 2 bids, the lower bid was Wilco Contractors Southwest Incorporated at a price of $787,755. So that price would include the procurement and planting of all the trees and shrubs, soil preparation, removing some of the ripping up and removing some of the gravel roads, as well as 2 years of maintenance, and yeah, so kind of the full package, like we're doing for the other berm projects. The construction, in this case, kind of planting, as well as 2 years of warranty and maintenance on that. This price came in a little bit higher than the landscape architect's opinion of probable cost, which was $650,000, but was significantly better than the second and the higher bidder price that was over $1 million, which included a very significant portion of land maintenance costs. So, with the recent closing of the bids and with ongoing project work for the Knack Mine Rosedale berms, as those projects are finishing, we're still unsure how the final costs on those 2 will shake out, as well as we're still waiting on confirmation for this grant we applied to with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We applied a year ago. We have submitted additional information, and we've been promised time and time again that it's almost there, and it'll be coming soon. And we've gotten, it's been suggested that we should be awarded unless, I don't know, something changes maybe on their end. So, but we just haven't gotten that confirmation. And that grant has been kind of, we've been aware of that and kind of trying to plan around that, but also reducing potential risk and uncertainty. So with that uncertainty, as well as the potential for needing to use some 2026 budget and the elections, we're recommending to hold off on this award of this project until later in the fall, until we've there's the new council, there's the 2026 budget is brought forward, as well as a decision has been made on this grant from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So I was originally going to come to, bring it to you for maybe award of this, but we'd like to defer that for now. Wilco has agreed to hold their prices, which is really important. So we have some certainty on that. As their condition was, as long as it would be awarded before the end of the year, so later this fall, and they requested a 1-month extension to construction, so kind of pushing it into July next summer, which is not a big issue. Overall, the schedule would still remain the same, with construction being completed by next summer, and then the 2-year warranty maintenance period going on after that. And yeah, let's see what else I want to tell you about that. The project cost for Lehigh and this budget and that landscape consultant's opinion of probable cost was included in our July budget. So we've been planning for this. It's not like a new project, and it has been required in previous years for previous berms by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We've been able to provide other projects that met their requirements. And while the projects are pending, so we've submitted this proposal, this plan for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Canada. They've accepted that. They're also requiring like a letter of credit, which is kind of like a bond you could think of, to basically ensure that the work gets done, to their satisfaction. So previously we've had to do that, and we've worked out those letters of credit with Victoria in the past, and we expect to receive one, be able to be released from one for work for some DFO compensation work near the raw water ponds across the river. There's some cattle fencing and planting done there. Yeah, so that is the overview of what I wanted to talk to you about. There's certainly lots more information in there that I could delve into, and would be happy to if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Graham. Okay, Council, because it's briefing note, I'm just gonna let you ask questions now and then we'll go from there. So, Tom?
So planting trees is wonderful. And I was just thinking, we have lots of trees in the valley. We have areas of bush, and so the people who are deciding where and when and what types of trees to plant, I mean, they're all qualified people. And I'm just wondering, as part of their design and consideration, considering all of the wildfires that have taken place in communities over the last not that many years, Jasper and LA and Fort Mac, etc., is there consideration given to that we don't want an awful lot of trees close to houses and things like that? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point about planning around wildfires around our towns and cities. Well, so I guess there's kind of two pieces of that. Like in this case, one of the advantages of being able to use Lehigh for a compensation project is that there are no houses there anymore. So kind of further upstream, sort of northwest, there are houses. There is sort of a ribbon of forest that would connect them along the river. So I guess there would be, the potential for fire to travel along the river there. And then it is in a nice way kind of a contained area, but the risk of fire does bring up maybe a bit of a liability in general to we're required to do this work and planting a lot of trees, and yeah, a fire could damage that, and so I think with that, I mean, you're working with Department of Fisheries and Oceans, if it's in the near future, to kind of work out a plan on a force of nature might have damaged the project and how we can work around that. There is still one fire hydrant at Lehigh along at the gate, which could be of use for the fire department.
Crystal?
Yeah, mine's just actually in regards to the study that will be done in partnership with University of Alberta. I think anyone that has fished the Red Deer River knows there are some invasive species. I have witnessed people using them as bait. And so I'm curious if when that report comes out, how can that be relayed to people that are using the river for fishing, and is Fish and Wildlife going to be able to use that information to educate people to stop bringing in these invasive species?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great question, and it's kind of a small piece of this project. So what it is It's a small study in partnership with the University of Alberta and the provincial environment and protected areas kind of worked with us to agree on that. And so we were able to contribute to that project, and that offset or took away some of the land we needed to um, improve or compensate for. So it was good for us. We got kind of some credit, you could call it, for that. And the idea they've sampled in the spring. I think they've sampled in the summer. There might be one more sampling event where they take a water sample and they can analyze the DNA and figure out what species are in there of certain target fish, like specific species of fish. So I haven't seen the results of that, but I think like yourself, a lot of people are going to be very curious, be very informative to understand what's in the Rosebud and in that nearby Red Deer River area. So I hope we can share more about that as we get information.
Anybody else, Tony?
Yeah, just coming back to the contract pricing here and the architect's estimate. Has labor settled down at this point here now that we're seeing such a difference still in the amount of bids that are coming in? I think the 787 is a little high yet, and the 1,000,003 is kind of bordering ridiculous. But is there room for the next council here? Like, I don't know what was in the architect's plan, but can that plan be scaled back to bring it within the anticipated grant amount that we're looking at down the road? We still maintain flexibility if you're committed to Wilco there for holding that bid, in which case it would be scaled back too. Is that an option?
That's a great question. So there will be likely some flexibility or some variability in the cost, only in the downwards, direction we would plan for, because this is an area that was recently had houses and buildings and roads removed, and it's starting to grow back on its own in some ways. Some stuff is what we would want and what DFO would like to see in the riparian area. Some stuff is not. So the planting plans is basically what we've sketched out to meet our requirements. But when it comes to the planting next spring, the landscape architects will be out there to stake out, and in some cases maybe work around where now native species have started to grow back from the cottonwoods and the willows on their own. So there will be some ability, I think, that will benefit the town, benefit us, because of natural regrowth and such a wet year this year. I think we can probably owe a lot of it just how much rain fell this year. And I think there could be the opportunity to maybe tighten things up and just reduce some of the total, material volumes and whatnot. But yeah, the pricing we saw with it, I can't really go into much detail on it, but is what we're hearing from the landscape architect is generally in line with pricing we're seeing on past projects. Some of the prices maybe were just a little bit higher, but we looked to see if there was something. What was the one thing that was driving a change of price? And it was really not one item particularly.
Tom?
Yes, Tom.
So we had some consultation with some of the First Nations for the Lehigh area and planting sage, for example. And they also talked about sweetgrass, which a little difficult because it basically you need kind of swamp. But I was just wondering, is that going to be part of the plan as well, the sage, for example?
So yeah, we had been engaging with them since, well, for quite some time, but for this project, throughout the fall and through the winter, with land agents, and we couldn't get the feedback we needed for the deadlines, and it was a bit slow just to hear back, and maybe the interest level was from the other side was not there. So we really did want that to work, and there's still probably some spaces there that could be used for that. It's not like those lands are gone or being completely filled up, because there is still some grasslands throughout there. We're certainly not planting all of it. There's still some large spaces of grass. So it's certainly still an opportunity, but at this point, it doesn't look like that will be a part of the project.
All right, anybody else? Yeah, so just council, so just so you're aware on that FCM grant, I've been working with Gary on making calls. We're probably 99.999% there. Just seems like every time they have one more question. So hopefully it comes through. I don't know if it'll come through this month, but let's hope so. All right, so can I get a motion to accept this information? Patrick?
I move the council accept the Fisheries and Oceans Canada Planting Program revegetation tender update as information.
Seconder? Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Thanks so much, Graham, for that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to 7.3.1, please, Greg.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Greg Peters. I'm Director of Protective Emergency Services for the town of Drumheller. If it pleases council, before you is a request for decision regarding a municipal policing committee bylaw, which council was briefed on last week. At that time, Mayor Kohlberg brought up questions regarding the mayor's role in the new committee. Earlier today, I did send information to, after review by the CAO, I sent information to each councillor regarding, after my conversation with the Office of Police Governance and the manager, this is kind of ground zero for all these developments for the policing committee. And dealing with the original impetus of the legislation, which initially, as I say, was vague about the mayor voting or not. But the legislation is quite clear on the impetus, the bottom line kind of being to return a committee to the grassroots, to a committee of peers of the municipality, and with certain individuals such as the CAO, the mayor, and the member perhaps in charge of the airspeed attached at the time, being present in an advisory role to the committee. There are municipalities in Alberta where the mayor, there will be a bylaw that stipulates the mayor is an ex officio member of all committees, which means the mayor is essentially a member of each if that person chooses to show for a particular meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have on this. And aside from that, we're seeking first and second reading of the bylaw this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Can I get a motion, please, council? Tony?
I move that council gives first reading to Municipal Policing Committee bylaw number 35.25 as presented.
Seconder? Stephanie? Comments? Oh, sorry, first reading. We have not the new bylaw yet. All in favor? Sorry, Mitchell, I was ready to change. Okay, can I get a motion for a second reading, please? Crystal?
I move that council gives second reading to Municipal Policing Committee bylaw number 35.25 as presented.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? Tom?
Yeah, first of all, I apologize. I wasn't able to be at the committee of the whole meeting last week. I was getting ready to go under the knife, which I would have rather been here, actually. So I didn't have a chance to comment. A couple of things regarding the mayor, first of all. If one of the aspects of this committee is to have input into the new detachment commander, and I believe that's part of what they would have input into, then I would think that the mayor should be an integral part of that. So that's just my comment in terms of that section. My second comment would be the makeup of the committee itself. So I'm looking at the 3 members of the community at large, and I'm just wondering why 3. To me, that seems a bit small, a bit limiting. And just give you a little bit of history. I've been part of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the RCMP, Community Policing Committee for 25 years. And I mean, years ago, we had the Citizens Advisory Committee to the RCMP, and it was basically made up of different people from the community representing different interests. So, for example, we had a member on the committee from the penitentiary. We had a member of the committee from the Pioneer Trail Center. We had a member of the committee from St. Anthony's School, from DVSS. That's how I got involved. Anyways, we had Rural Crime Watch. We had, you know what I'm saying? We had a whole bunch of people on the committee that gave what I consider to be very valuable input to the detachment commander. And so I'm just wondering where this number of 3 community members came from. And my suggestion would be that should be a little bit broader.
These are the guidelines Mr. Zrisky put forward by the province, sir, and our draft bylaw reflected those guidelines from the province. In conversations with these people, I believe it's an attempt to make the committee perhaps compact and not unwieldy or too many people. I mean, I can speak for even council itself at 6 members represents quite well the interests of the community without having to have people from every avenue or every, you know, organization or walk of life. But these are the guidelines that we've been following. And I think it's certainly a workable number if people are motivated and listening to what the public has to say and bringing these to the attention of the committee. But that's just my input. Thank you.
Anybody else? Stephanie?
Yes. So on 5.1D, it says the Municipal Policing Advisory Committee will assist in selection of the officer in charge. So if RCMP is federal and we're a municipality, like municipal, is that kind of a overstep of us to assist in picking that presiding officer?
No, Ms. Price, the RCP has policy now where they must include the municipality in representative municipality in the selection and interview of the whoever the maybe a corporal or a sergeant or staff sergeant in charge of whatever detachment. I recently took part in the selection of a new staff sergeant, the process with the RCMP. So yes, they are federal / provincial contract, but we have a municipal contract with the RCMP as well, with several conditions and requirements of that contract. And one of these conditions now is that the municipality shall have a voice in the selection of the. So I understand what you're saying. We're kind of got a strata here of all 3 levels of government in one respect or another, but it does work, and there is policy now to support that.
I'm gonna just expand on hers. So typically, when we hire a new sergeant, it's the CAO and Director of Protective Services yourself. Like now we're asking people at large to have an input?
No,
Like, cause it says
the
duties
request,
and functions, and then it says assistant selection, so.
that's relatively a small, taking part in the selection of a new non-commissioned officer would be a relatively small and infrequent function of the committee, only perhaps happening every few years. In the process now, direction and request was sent to the CAO asking us to identify if we wish to take part in the selection of process of the new staff sergeant. For example, it isn't a sergeant here. We have a staff sergeant in charge of the detachment. And in conversation with the CAO of the day, which was Mr. Drumheller, he asked me to take part in the process with the representative of the RCMP in the interviews and review of the person's
And I
resume
absolutely
and all
agree
this.
that it should be you or Esther. I just don't think it should be a committee of volunteer, the way this is written. The
No,
advisory
but
committee,
it's more, no, I understand what you're saying, Ms. Colberg. It could be deleted. It could also not be, the committee selecting, rather contributing or being part of the process may be to say that the person in advisory role, perhaps the CAO or myself on the committee, take part in the selection process. I don't think we're necessarily limited by the strictness of the words. I think that I think there's a degree of freedom, of choice and selection as to how they wish to proceed. Now, I'm not trying to prognosticate how the committee will function, but I think there's a degree of liberty there as to how they want to proceed with.
yeah, I guess I'm just scared because we've seen things happen where a board makes decisions that affects the whole community. So
Yes.
hate to see a board have the power to make a decision on the staff sergeant when really that should be you're the best, and the CAOs should be the 2 people I think should be assigned to that role. I don't think it should be, even as council, I don't get to sit in the hiring of director of infrastructure or CFO or director of practice services. So I don't even get to sit in that level. So I'm kind of nervous we're giving the power to a board. Cause like I say, we've watched some boards make some
No, I
pretty
understand, Ms. Cooper.
drastic decisions.
No, I understand, your worship. No, we could certainly review these, and if council has concerns, I could either, again, depart to ask questions, or we could come back with a different draft that deletes a certain
Okay, I'd like that.
aspect of it.
You guys agree? Okay, okay. Sorry, okay, sorry, who's next? Did you finish, Steph? Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Oh, just a sec. Esther has an
Sorry,
addition.
what I would suggest actually is if we just define assist in the selection thereof, if it is a requirement that the RCMP and the province has suggested we follow, maybe we just limit the definition of assist in the selection process a bit and bring that back for your consideration. Just provide a little more elaboration on what, instead of saying just assist in selection of, we could modify it after talking with the K Division, what, maybe it's just review the process or review administration's direction or something along those lines instead of specifically assist. Just change the wording a little bit.
All right, go ahead, Steph.
6.4, it talks about each prospective member must undergo an enhanced security check. So we can't appoint anybody without already having that security check. So how will we appoint them if they don't have it? What is an enhanced security check? Do we know how long it's going to take? And who instigates it? Do we write a letter from the town saying, we want this person, or we're like, if I volunteer at the school, I go and get a form that says I need to have a security check and stuff to volunteer there. So I'm wondering how they would go about getting it too.
No, exactly, Ms. Price. No, if a name came forward, the process would not take very long. There would be some documents such as the person agreeing to have a records check done, certain things done. In the background, we don't want someone perhaps who's wanted on warrants or has an agenda, perhaps, that wouldn't be most welcome on a municipal committee. This is further addressed in the procedures and policy for the committee, which I have written, but is now still being reviewed by the province, and how this would work out. So I can come back with more details. Of course, I'm familiar with these things. I don't envision this taking a long time or being an arduous or being anything deleterious or anything. It would just be a person agreeing to have certain things done to produce these, a records check, perhaps character reference, much like we've done on other committees as well.
Crystal?
And just to add to that, this would also include any of the counselors that would be appointed. So what if we get in a situation, none of them could be? Then what? They don't meet the security check because we don't require it to be on council.
Mhm.
So I'm just concerned about the whole extra security, but it's good. Like, I appreciate it for the public, but I'm just thinking,
No, this
we
has
don't know
been
what's going to
brought,
happen.
this is an issue, Mr. Rada, that has brought concern to the provincial office has mentioned this, that this could be how we navigate this is, I'm not trying to smooth over it at all. How we navigate it is not necessarily our own choice, but there are certain things that can be done to not make things an issue. And I'm happy to come back with the policy manual when I get, it won't perhaps be done for some time, but it is addressed in there. And common sense has to rule the day, and fairly quickly you can determine. And most, I say this, in a smaller community like we are, it's not like there's a lot of unknowns, or you say there are common sense. Let me leave it at that. Common sense between the committee, council, the RCMP, and the applicant would. I'm confident with that won't be, but I understand your concerns, and I can certainly,
Tom?
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful step in the right direction, and I hope people realize how significant this is. The idea of police oversight by citizens is something that we should not take lightly because it doesn't happen in a lot of places in this world. There's lots of places in this world, you criticize the police, you go missing. Like, this is a wonderful opportunity, and I hope there will be some good people that will step forward and want to be on this committee and take this responsibility very, very seriously, because it is something that it's like a democracy. It's like the right to vote. It's something that doesn't happen all the time everywhere.
Anybody else? Tony?
Yeah, just with respect with the mayor's right to vote on this here committee. So I did get your email, and it's good rationale, and it's in the public input is kind of the desired outcome of the creation of this thing. But just to be clear, this is a standalone committee for the public, and municipal council still has its input, right? So the committee does not drive the direction of where we're going. We still, at the end of the day,
Yes, sir.
have, as we have in the past with our sergeant, through updates and desires and outcomes, and that won't disappear, right? So we have a municipal connection. So in my mind, then the ability of the mayor to vote is more satisfactory, I guess, as an advisory position, because we have our opportunity as well as council to provide direct input outside of the committee. So I think the spirit of this is to gather the public input more so, right?
Yes, Mr. Locker. I envision ideally a committee of well-meaning, highly motivated citizens and council looking clear-eyed at policing issues, what can be done, what may have not have been done, or suggestions, direction, a meeting with the police, and taking the advice of people that have been, I'm not trying to be flip, but around the block several times with the law, with policies, with dealing with police administration and various levels of government to help guide and provide reasonable, fair advice and guidance to these people. That's my ideal that I'm thinking would best serve our community.
Exactly. And again, by the establishment of a committee, council is not washing its authority into that. So if something unbeknownst direction changed or whatever, we would still have the power to intervene and take over.
Yes, sir.
From an input.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, Greg, I just got a couple. 5.1F. It says report annually or on request of the minister on the implementation. So typically now every letter comes from me or CAO. So I think that should just be maybe say through the approval of the CAO or mayor, because you're not going to get the
No, I understand.
province. Yeah,
Upon
they're not
approval
going to.
of.
Yeah, they're not going to respond to a chair.
Oh, your worship, you think upon approval of the CAO's office or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then 6.10 is already in 7.1B. So I think you can remove 6.10. It says all members may take an oath. Then in 7.1 eligibility B, take the oath. So
Well, that is, but the section 7 is on defining eligibility, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But the other one is membership. So they have to have them do both. They both refer to section 28.05, section 1 of the act.
I'm sorry. Give me that again. I'm sorry, please.
So 6.10 refers to section 28.051 of the act, and so does 7.1B. So I think we only have to say it once, don't we?
No, I will look at that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And then while we're at under C, it says undertake criminal record check and sustainability. What's a sustainability screening? I've never heard of it.
That's like a local indices check of any activity with the police.
Oh, okay. So if you've been good or not?
Well, there could be 37 entries, but somebody's called in reasonably 37 complaints. It doesn't necessarily adverse information on the local police indices.
Okay, well, those are my comments. But again, another great document. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor, second reading of 7.3.1? Carried, thank you. All right, let's move on to 7.4.1, please, Jared.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jared Bronstein, Director of Infrastructure Services, and I actually have 3 reports for you this evening. And we'll be starting off with a revised purchasing policy. So we've looked at updating our purchasing policy, which was originally reviewed in 2020 and now being updated for 2025. This new policy will bring our purchasing into a more refined state, allow us for greater flexibility in how we purchase things, provide us with more advantages in using standing offers, buying groups, etc. It's also going to look at increasing our expenditure limits in regards to administration, as well as council. So that's one of the biggest changes with this policy is we're actually bumping up all those authority limits to reflect current construction costs. So originally, anything $100,000 or less, the Director of Infrastructure Services could sign off it. That has now been bumped up to $250,000. Anything $250,000 or less, the CAO can sign off on it. That has now been bumped up to $500,000. And anything above $500,000 still has to come to council for authorization to expend the funds. Some of the other things that were clarified was emergency procurement. We also looked at and modified our advertising and transparency. We modified our evaluation and disqualification processes. So we actually looked into to define how we're going to deal with our RFPs. We made stronger rules in regards to conflict of interest and confidentiality in regards to our contractual obligations. And we also looked at our contractual commitments. So we actually looked at how to define how long a contract lasts for and what the requirements are for once that contract has expired. That was previously not included in the purchasing policy. So again, this is just to bring some greater clarity to our purchasing processes, to allow us some greater ability to purchase things when needed, as well as look at some of the advantages to doing buying groups, etc. There are no financial impacts to this policy, and the recommendation is the administration recommends that council approve purchasing policy P0225C as presented, and in doing so repeals purchasing policy C09-20, C03-17, and C03-0309. Are there any questions of council?
Same thing, council. I'm going to ask for discussion before this, because we only have one motion on this, so can go ahead and ask your questions, Tom.
So one of the biggest criticisms that we get when we're purchasing the town is, why don't we shop locally? And so I guess I'm looking at this policy and I'm thinking, we have to be very, very clear, very, very sure that we explore all the possible vendors in town and in the area. And I'm just looking at the definition, for example, of best value. And the definition that you've got there goes most advantageous balance between quality, specification, service, timely delivery, assurance of supply and delivery experience, and price, which is all fine, absolutely. But I guess when we're thinking of what is best for the community, some of the extrinsic value that we have by supporting a business in town that pays taxes, I mean, that is value for this community. That is value for the town. So I'm just getting at to make sure that we realize that value is not necessarily just the best price, is just the best quality. I mean, those are obviously things that we take into consideration. But there are these other things that are of value that I think should be taken into consideration as well.
So through the chair to Councilor Zerski, we try to do it as best as possible. We are limited by the new West Partnership Agreement, which is a trade agreement between the Western provinces. So anything less than $75,000, we try to allow for more local purchasing. Anything greater than 75,000, unfortunately, we are tied to that trade agreement. So we have to go for public procurement, and we have to go with lowest or most qualified bid.
Patrick?
In previous iterations of this policy, there was the local preference provision that I think allowed about a 5%, 10%. How often was that actually used or practiced? Did it actually help or?
Through the chair to Council Claw, as far as I know, we've actually never implemented that 10% savings for a local vendor because of the threshold was so low. Normally, we would just sole source to a vendor at $35,000. So we can find some locally that can provide us with the good or the service under that threshold. We would just go ahead and use local through the 3-quote system. The only time that would ever come into play would be a tendering process, and normally that isn't a large enough value to make it a competitive edge to local.
Crystal?
Yeah, and just to add to both of their comments, quite often we've had this where some local providers have provided a quote or a package, and it doesn't even meet the criteria that's requested. So that's hard to, not support someone local, but they're not putting in the requirement for a tendering package. So maybe that's something helping the locals. I don't know what the solution is, but it's hard to say yes to someone who has not completed a tender package is what I'm going to say as a local.
So through the chair of council, you are correct. So unfortunately, we try to encourage local suppliers, local vendors to bid on these things, but yes, sometimes they do miss the mark in regards to the mandatory requirements in our procurement process. So I think probably some education in regards to that would be beneficial to the community, and we could look at doing that in the future.
Stephanie?
I had a question about the procurement process, but I believe the Western Trade Agreement actually answers that because the 10,000 to $74,999 is an informal competitive bidding process, and 75,000 greater is a formal, so that would probably be why.
So through the chair to Councilor Price, yes, you are correct. That is that key number of $75,000 is where that new West Trade Agreement comes into play, and we have to go out for a competitive process.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the local preference clause going missing out of the process going forward here. I liked your wording earlier though about the purchases under a certain amount. Can the spirit or the intention of that be included in the document versus the 10% and tying it to a limit like that, Lur? Maybe had tied your hands before, and yes, you didn't ever use it because of other requirements, but something along the spirit of what you had said earlier there.
Through the chair to Councilor Walker, we were looking at developing a procedure to come along with this policy. That will be an administrative procedure, and that is something we could look at introducing into that procedure, is to have that spirit of trying to provide the local ability within that scope.
I'd be happy with that versus a council policy.
Go ahead, Crystal. You're agreeing with Tony? Anybody else? Yeah, I agree. There has to be something in there so that because it's not always just you doing it, or I think it has to be very clear. I think we've pushed that a lot, that we've tried to support local. And I know I absolutely agree with you when it comes down to that new West partnership that we're liable or responsible to work within those parameters. But I think we changed that dynamics in the beginning of our term, that we were pushing to use more local, and I think we did get there on not everybody, but we hit some roadblocks on some things that were over the amount, and they didn't fill the paperwork out right, and that's really unfortunate because price wise they were there, but they didn't fill in the paperwork. And I think they have to understand that that's completely out of our control. It's a responsibility of the government that we're allowed to follow, so, or responsible to follow. So, yeah, I think if you guys can put something in an administrative process, I think it'd be nice to see that done. Anything else? Okay, can I get a motion now? Tony?
I'll move that council adopts the purchasing policy number P0225C as presented.
Seconder, Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Jared, for that. And now we will go to 7.4.2. You're all hanging in there with us?
Thank you, Your Worship. Request for decision for electrical vehicle charging unit upgrades. So originally we brought a report to council back in February of 2025 in regards to the two outdated charging units the municipality currently owns and operates. With that, Sun Country Highway actually reached out to us, I think it was about a month and a bit ago, in regards to upgrading those two charging units to full integrated as well as fee setup abilities. So they have come to us with a proposal to provide these units free of charge to the municipality. However, there is a cost to install them. It's a minor cost of $500 per site. But again, this is a change to the process in which council wanted to move forward with back in February, where we were going to leave EV charging up to third-party providers. There are two options before council tonight. There is just to replace the existing one like for like, but again, upgraded at $500 per site. Some countries also offered us dual head chargers for each site. So that would be the ability to charge two vehicles at half the rate because of our electrical services. So basically you would plug in for twice as long if you're using either side of the electrical thing. With an added cost of $3,500 a site for a total of $7,000. Our recommendation is to move ahead with just the one charger per site. This will allow for charging times to remain as they are, but it'll also allow us to recoup the costs associated with electrical use at each of those sites. So there is a recommendation before council that council approve the upgrading of the current EV charger units located at the Badlands Community Center, or facility, sorry, and at the parking lot on First Street West north of Railway, where the one old EV charger will be removed at each site and replaced with one new EV charger, option one, that allows for the associated user fee. Any questions of council?
I got a motion, please. Stephanie?
I move that council approves upgrading the current EV charger units located at the Badlands Community Facility and at the parking lot on First Street West north of Railway Avenue, where one old EV charger will be removed at each site and replaced with one new EV charger unit provided by Sun Country Highway, and furthermore directs administration to establish an associated EV charge user fee.
Seconder? Patrick? Comments? Crystal?
Well, for someone who recently traveled to a country this spring where 90% of the vehicles are EV, it was extremely frustrating trying to charge a vehicle and use these different pay systems. So I just want to make sure that whatever pay system is in place is going to be extremely user friendly and takes all credit cards and doesn't have to download an app, and you need an email address and you need blah blah. It was the most ridiculous thing. We got so frustrated. So I just, from my experience, I don't want that to ever be someone else's experience. So just a quick question though, on the, would we ever consider have to upgrade to put in two at each site?
So that'd be a significant service upgrade to each one of those sites. Right now, there isn't the electrical service there for it. The one on First Ave would probably be more economical to upgrade. The BCF is fed through the BCF. So you'd have to do some massive electrical upgrades to the BCF to make that one more substantial.
Tony?
Yeah, very happy to see this. I guess they didn't realize how close they came to losing these things, but I think council's concern was the usage of outdated equipment at the expense of the taxpayer because we were paying for the charge to their car because there was no. So happy to see that the upgrades are giving us up-to-date technology and that the pay system it now passes the cost of that electricity back to the user. So yeah, we could continue to provide the service of the two locations under single unit. I wouldn't want to see any upgraded to that.
Stephanie?
So pretty much what Tony just said, and going with option one, I think is the way to go. The quicker charging time and the lower cost to the town of $1,000 to upgrade the electrical for that and everything. I think this is a great option, so thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, as you know, I've been banging this drum for a while. And I'm very happy to see this. I think as a tourist community, there's more and more and more electric vehicles coming. Doing parking at the AMP, for example, this summer, I was very surprised at how many electric vehicles were coming into that parking lot from out of town. So it's very good to see this as a tourist incentive. I'm just wondering how much per month approximately we would make. Like I'm looking at the cost and it says $450 per month. And the highway will get 3%. And any idea how much per month? And what I'm getting at is if we are going to make, a significant amount, why don't we upgrade everything to the top level now and then use that money that we're making to pay it off? So I'm just questioning that.
Through the chair to Councillor Zerski. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know what kind of income we're going to be making. It depends on if we just do a recoup cost or if we actually want to start making money off of EV. Generally, EV rates have been pretty break even in regards to the cost of the infrastructure and the rates for electricity. It's been massive incentives to get these things put in the ground, and I don't think anybody's actually looked at the total cost of ownership in regards to these systems. What we could do is look at some options in regards to our rates that may allow us to now fund future upgrades and provide that greater level of EV service if that's what council would like to move towards.
Anybody else? Well, I've always been this one's frustrated me because nobody puts in shells, tanks or SOs or whoever, and yet, if you choose to have an electric vehicle, that's totally your choice. I just want some really good affirmation here that this is not going to be a cost to the taxpayers, because I absolutely disagree if it is. I realize it's $1,000 to set up. You should be able to make that back pretty quickly. You should be able to cover your cost of $450 per month in electrical. But if it's not, I hope that at some point we wipe them out, because I just think that it's a user pay. You choose to drive that kind of vehicle, then you should offset your own costs, not the taxpayers of Drumheller. So I hope that if this does pass, that there's something in your notes that's checked 6 months following it being implemented, probably after the summer, that you would have a good idea if it was cost recovery. If it wasn't, I'd take the suckers out.
No, we'll make sure it's cost recovery at a minimum and look at our potential for.
Yeah, I just get so frustrated with this because I just feel like it's too many of these kind of things. I mean, I'm all about environment. I'm all about other options, but I don't think it should be on the backs of taxpayers. Tony?
Yeah, and I'd reiterate that as well. But I think how we got to this place is that it was on the backs of taxpayers to start with. You pull up, you plug in, and then you drive away later because there was no pin pad or anything to pay with. So, at the very least, we've converted the 2 units to a user pay system, And now we can look at it as providing a service, but to do an expansion over and above throughout the whole other locations, that's for next future council to decide. And I don't know that there's demand in order to do that because there are already alternative locations at other businesses. So I think our main objective was just to, because we had told you before, we're taking these things out and they're done, right? So I think it's only because of this that they will live on for a little longer.
Crystal?
I don't quite understand how Hannah has a full set of Tesla chargers and Drumheller does not.
Through the chair to council, that is an interesting comment. When I did reach out to Tesla, they didn't see the need for charging stations in Drumheller. They did not see the usership coming through this Highway 9 corridor. Now that may be because Hannah has a charging station. So that would be the distance needed from Calgary to then recharge. And we are too close is probably what's happened.
Anybody else? Yeah, no, I don't, it's another service we're providing, which is great. I just want to just reaffirm that that those who choose to drive that kind of vehicle pay their own way. It's pretty straightforward. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, let us move on to major capital project 7.4.3. And that's you again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I said I had 3 reports tonight. This is the last one. So this is our major capital project review from 2025 to 2029. So this is the existing 5-year capital plan that has been approved by council as of the 2025 budget. This plan represents 68 million in capital investment from 2025 to 2029. What needs to be brought to attention is the town has a current capital capacity of 4.8 million per year. So when you start to look at some of the costs associated with our capital program over the next 4 years, we're averaging upwards of $14 million a year in capital improvements. A lot of these projects are not nice to haves. These are needed upgrades to infrastructure. Some of the ones that I've highlight is the downtown area revitalization plan. So this would be for Center Street. These are numbers that were in the 2025 financial plan. These numbers will be revised for 2026 and beyond. Right now it's sitting at $2 million and could potentially go up from there. Bridge 9 and 10, we're looking at $10 million a piece for both of those bridge decks. Fire department is looking to replace one of their engines in 2026 at $1.4 million. Our street improvement program is a $1.2 million project, program every year. There are some successes in regards to lobbying upper levels of government. There's potential for the Hoodoo parking lot improvements. That will be a Government of Canada capital program potentially in 2026. And then they're looking to resurface Highway 575 in 2027, and we have partnered with the province to assist in that project. Some of the wastewater improvements, we're looking at 5th Street Lift Station. So that's the corner of 5th and Riverside. That station was built in the late 50s and has surpassed its life expectancy. Sewer main replacement program beginning in 2027. We'll be looking at implementing $500,000 per year every year to start looking at sanitary sewer rehab. Penitentiary lift station in 2028, a cost of $700,000. A septic receiving station in 2028 at $750,000. So this is to mitigate some of the challenges we're having with people coming in with their septic trucks and dumping them in our lagoons. That causes an imbalance in our systems. So actually putting in a septic receiving system, which allows us to now pre-treat that effluent before it gets sent into our plant. Water capital, penitentiary water main improvement. So that main is seen its life expectancy and will be about $1 million to replace. That main operates at about 3,000 PSI. So that's going to be a critical piece of infrastructure to make sure we maintain. Water tower bank fluid slope production in 2027. That's another $1 million. So this is the water reservoir up behind No Frills. And Huntington Bankview booster station replacements at $1.6 million. I want to put the caveat on these. This is from the 2025 5-year financial plan. These will change in 2026 and reflect another direction in regards to those areas. There is a feasibility study that's going to be looked at and upgrading to a central reservoir system with pumps or going to a central reservoir system on elevation. So that will address those two areas in regards to pressure. So again, there's a significant financial impact to the municipality in regards to these projects. There is a more detailed list provided as part of this report. If council would like, we can go through this line by line, or if there are highlights within this that you want to ask questions about, we can go down that path as well.
Thanks, Jared. Let's just go through questions right now first. Crystal?
You said bridge 9 and 11, but is it bridge 10 and 11? Because that's what's listed on the sheet.
Sorry, I get my bridges confused.
That's okay. There's a lot of them.
So yes, it would be bridge 9 and 10.
9 and 10. Okay. So yeah, your list is just inaccurate. And then I always ask things about when it says other. What do you mean by other? Those ones?
So instead of listing all of our capital programs within this list, which would then just make it very, very long, we capitalized on some of the more program related capital items within other. So what was identified here was the major capital programs that are going to have a significant impact to the community as to the municipality. And then within that, other services are smaller ones such as asset management software or financial management software or a new photocopier or a survey equipment or things like that of smaller nature have just been lumped into one pot.
Just a real quick one, because one of them that really stood up to me was other recreation and parks projects over the how many years at 3.5. That's a pretty big budget line item for other recreation. Can you?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure what falls into that $1 million. CFO Chan? Do you remember? This would include building retrofits as well as any park retrofits, etc. But
I think it also includes the feasibility study.
That's for like a new pool, that kind of stuff. The multi, okay. Patrick?
Just, I see the big issue that, yeah, we have an infrastructure deficit like many, many other communities. And yeah, it's gonna take some challenges. I'm curious, when we talk about oversee the replacement of 575, does that mean we're gonna take the lead in doing the contracting out or combine it with our street improvement program?
yeah, so we've taken the lead in assisting Alberta Transportation on contracting it out. We took advantage of this as this is going to provide some huge economies of scale in regards to our paving program. So we're hoping to combine it with ours to then get some lower pavement costs to do more in town limits.
Tom?
Yeah, thank you. So regarding the penitentiary, I believe a couple of years ago, we replaced the pump.
So we replaced
water
the
pump to go to the
booster station.
penitentiary, and
Yep.
we applied to the federal government for a grant, and we didn't get anything. And so now we're going to do the lift station replacement
So there's a lift station replacement and a water main replacement.
and the water main. And are we going to apply to the federal government again?
Of course, Councilor Zarisky.
Yeah,
We'll try
and
to
what are the
leverage
chances of us getting anything?
That is a
anyways.
question I cannot answer.
But we are going to apply
We are
and,
gonna
and
approach
say,
this.
you know, this is a federal facility and this is on the backs of local taxpayers and plead and, yeah, whine.
Stephanie?
Thank you for the report. I wanted to thank you for addressing the Huntington and Bankview booster station and bringing to light about the water distribution system master servicing study and how that's probably going to change due to that. And so thank you.
Is that the study that Bill brought to us a year ago?
Yes, Your Worship, that would have been brought to you, I believe, in May of last year.
Anybody else? Okay, I just want to comment on these bridges. So we have single bridges going out to Wayne, and it's part of the character of the, and yet we seem to want to turn it into a roadway. And I actually spoke to Minister MacGyver, who loves that road, and he even himself questioned why we went with the 2-lane bridge, and he said it was our decision, and we say it was their decision. So I'm not sure whose it was.
So-
but it would be great to try and, like, we could keep those costs, I think, far under control, keeping it the character of the space, the single bridge. Like, we're wrecking the whole vibe going out there. So I mean, it's been that way for how many years? Few hundred years. So why do we have to always change things? So I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just expecting future councils to question that one. Just so you know. 2, the cemetery sprinkler system was in the 25 budget. Is that being moved to the 26, or is that?
So
And
we
I
will,
just have a resident who has loved ones.
so we will, so unfortunately due to staff absences, we are gonna carry that forward to 2026 and we're combining it with 2026 money.
Okay,
And we'll look to do more in 2026.
okay, I'll let that resident know then. Okay, and then as far as infrastructure, I'm on a mid-sized mayor's caucus group that's pretty much our number one discussion. In every community in this province is short on infrastructure funding. So hopefully, again, the new mayor will get involved and continue to lobby on behalf of the community, because if every community, and I'm on a group with everybody from Disbury all the way up north, and we're all in the same boat. So I think if you guys can just continue to, till this whole thing is solved with the mid-sized mayors, just keep pushing for grants, because that's what I'm told is they keep funneling all this money into grants. So the best grant writers are the best receivers. So just what I'm hearing, I just thought I'd share that. So again, again, thank you to counselors for being here, but as you see, it's not all pretty stuff. Sometimes a lot of this stuff is stuff we don't even see. But unfortunately, it's stuff that has to be dealt with, and our priorities are water, sewer, roads, that kind of thing. So I hope you continue to support administration on these projects. Anything else? All right, can I get a motion to accept that presentation, please, Stephanie?
I move the council accepts the major capital projects 2025 to 2029 review report as information.
Seconder, Tony, all in favor? Carrie, can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Tony,
I move that the committee adjourn the meeting at 6:24 p.m.
seconder, Stephanie, all in favor?
Excuse me, Your Worship, point of order. There was an error in the agenda package and the motion should read that council adjourn the meeting. My apologies.
Oh, Tony.
Sorry, I was having trouble figuring out whether I'm a council or a committee since the last meeting we ever had. So
Can you
I
amend
thought
your-
maybe I was a committee of council.
Will you amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion.
Stephanie, will you accept the amendment?
I'll accept the amendment.
Okay, all in favor? Carried, thanks, good catch, Angela. All right, thank you, everyone, thanks for being with us. It's, we are down to one more meeting, October 6th. It's been wonderful, we're having, it's been a real ride and we're enjoying it. And I'm so thankful to people that came to watch and see. Hopefully they're learning something, and those who are running, please get out there and meet the people. Be kind to your friends, be kind to your neighbors, look after your family, and wishing you all the best this week. Take care.